Hey, let's talk about relative clauses. Now, let's start off with an example. Let's look at this clause. Taylor Swift is a singer, followed by another clause. Taylor Swift just released a new album. Now, the idea is to put these clauses together to form a full sentence, a real sentence. For example, Taylor Swift is a singer who just released a new album. Now, the thing is that Taylor Swift is a person, so we can use the word who for people. Okay, so if we're talking about a thing, then we can use the word which. For example, that's the restaurant which has great calzone. It's not calzone, it's calzone. Okay, now we also can use the word where for places. For example, that's the restaurant where you can find good food. So wait a minute, but didn't they start off with with the same clause? That's the restaurant. Well, how do you know which one it should you use? For example, in the first one, that's the restaurant which has good calzone. Here, I'm referring to a thing because there are different types of restaurants, like for example, Mexican restaurants, Italian restaurants, fast food restaurants. But in the second sentence, hey, that's the restaurant where I met my wife. I'm being more specific on the location where I met my wife. I could have met her at the restaurant, at the county jail, or even under a bridge, but that's a location, right? Okay, so moving on. We also got time, and that's when we can use the word when. The 80s was when I was born. And we also have possessive. Those with the word whose. Those are the students whose teacher is ill today. Ill is another word for sick. Okay, moving on. We can also use another word for person and thing. We could replace who and which for the word that. So, if we go back to the original sentence, Taylor Swift was a singer who just released a new album, we can also say Taylor Swift is a singer that just released a new album. Okay? That's the restaurant which has good calzone, turns into that's the restaurant that has good calzone. Okay, it doesn't end there. We're gonna look at something else. Those relative clauses were at a B1 level, but now let's look at something called non-defining clauses. Let's go back over here. We're gonna use Taylor Swift as our example throughout this class. Taylor Swift won her first Grammy in 2009. We got a sentence there. Followed by Taylor Swift has just announced her new world tour. At the time of this recording, yes, she has announced a new world tour. So, but the idea again is to put the sentences together. But before I do, let me ask you a question. Which piece of information or which sentence do you think is more important? Something that happened in the past or her announcement of her new tour? Think about it. Is it the past or the future? We're going to say that the new world tour is more important. Okay? Now, let's put them together. Taylor Swift, who won her first Grammy in 2009, has just announced her new world tour. This is an example of a non-defining clause. So let's go back to the original sentence. A defining clause was Taylor Swift is a singer who just released her new album. A non-defining clause, Taylor Swift, who won her first Grammy in 2009, has just announced her new world tour. Now, there are some rules to this, and I'll show you. For example, in a non-defining clause, we don't need commas. But in the non-defining clause, we are going to have to use commas with that extra piece of information that she won her first Grammy in 2009. Another rule is that we can use the word that in a defining clause. We could replace who and which with that, but we cannot do that in a non-defining clause. We must use the relative clause who or which, okay? And we must always use the pronoun. There's no exception. because with the defining clause, yeah, we can actually omit it. Omit means to take out. So you could take out the relative clause, but this is where I might lose some of you guys. So let me explain how in the most simplest way possible, okay? Here's an example. Soledad is the girl who I'm in love with. The relative clause here is who. Now, Soledad is the subject. Now, the girl is the object. If the subject is the same as the object, then we can take out the relative clause. Soledad is the girl I'm in love with. You see?